Good morning, and welcome back to Good Morning Tobago, guys. As we continue our conversations this morning, we're speaking with the president of All Fisherfolk Association, that is Mr. Curtis Douglas. Good morning, Mr. Douglas, and welcome.
Good morning to you, and good morning to the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago and to the wider rest of the world.
Right. Well, you are no stranger to the set here at Tobago Updates, and it's always a pleasure to sit with you and chat about what's happening in the space, especially where fishing is concerned, especially where the fisher folk are concerned. Now, we saw just a few months back that we had that tragedy of the oil spill in Tobago, and that would have negatively impacted the fisher folk as well as just the persons living on that side of the island. But recently you have been advocating for adequate compensation for the fishermen. Tell us about that journey and where you are at this present moment.
Well, where we are presently as ATFA, the All Tobago Fisher Folk, we are at a crossroad, meaning that we would have done our research, we would have done our investigation, we would have realized what hydrocarbon would have done. Well, the local terms, the oil spill, would have cost the entire fishing community, not only Scarborough, Lambo, but Tobago, because we're such a small island that when one little part is damaged, it affects the entire island. It's like chains that connected. So I'm here this morning to really shed some light on where we are and what is taking place in the growth and development in the fishing industry, and how we have been suffering from since the 7th of February 2024 to date, in the terms of being able to go to sea, being able to catch bait. The whole fishing community is being affected, because now we would have seen damage of the juvenile fish, which some of them we use to catch bait. So, we cannot go there as it stand, because as it stand, there still is a 500 meters perimeter that is exclusive, that fisher folk cannot enter. So even in that vicinity, we can't catch fish, or more so, we can't even catch a bait to catch the fish. So we are under attack as such, and the government, as we see it, hasn't done anything to alleviate or to ease some of the stress and pain and suffering that fishing community of Tobago are going through as it stands.
Right, and during our interview here, I had a conversation with a representative from the Lambo fisher folk, and she would have indicated that you are currently one of their key advocates when it comes to negotiating or speaking on their behalf to the current government, whether it be the THA or the central government. What has that process been like for you? What have you been doing to advocate for them?
Well, before advocate, what will happen? I just want to give people insight to new listeners who don't know the diaspora, or how it was built out and how it came about with the All Tobago Fisher Folk Association. So this was created by Emil Louis. This was a guy, he passed, may God rest his soul, we thank him. And what he would have created is an organization from all different sectors of Tobago. So you find Miss Ramki Soon, who is the president of Lambo Fisher Folk, right? I'm the president of Plymouth Fisher Folk. Junior Koshi is the president of Castara. Sheldon Cooper is the president of Culloden. And it goes on. Miss Williams is now the president of Southwest. So all of them, we have collaborated and formed that team. And they normally be an election every 3 or 4 years where we elect a new president. Hence the reason why I'm the president. So you have a 14 board member, executive directors that direct ATFA. So it's not me, it's the entire board that carries it, but I'm just the president that carries out most of the functions, that represent the fisher folks. So when I sit here to represent the board and all fisher folks in Tobago. And we would have taken the THA to court, Mr. London, and they would have given us the legal rights to the High Court of Trinidad and Tobago to represent fisher folks. So we have the ability to sign off and make decisions and speak on the behalf and make decisions on the behalf of the Tobago fisher folk. And it's all in our manifestos and stuff like that. So what happened so far? We would have done our investigation, so we would have done internal investigation of all those people who would have been affected by the fishing, by the hydrocarbon. So we went around, we checked their boats, we checked the engine, we checked their nylons, we would have done an intel visit because we would have a team to do that. So after the team would have done that, they would have reported back to ADFA of what it is, how they were affected, and we would have then calculate the losses from their income, their daily income that they make on a daily basis. Because fishermen can't sit back and say we join pay by the month. They have to work as a day to day, so they are like daily paid workers, right? So we would have calculated based on the average fish. Now, obviously, every fisherman may not catch the same amount of fish. So if a man go one night, some might catch 700 pounds, some might catch 800 pounds. It depends on how the yield is, right? So we would have calculated that and realized that. So what we would have done is find a baseline figure, meaning a lower figure than the highest figure, and calculate the lossage of the fisher folks. So we would have comprised all of that. So in comprising all of that, we would have gotten a total, a baseline total, and we would have submitted that total to the Chief Secretary, which is the Tobago House Assembly, notifying them as an independent body that represent the fisher folk. This is the amount of losses we would have sustained within the 64 days, right? And at that time was over 12 to 13 million dollars at 64 days, as it's still, they are still ongoing, right? So obviously, when the total by that time was over 14 million, so you can imagine how much it will be now. Now remember, when that happened, fishermen had loan to pay, they had a family to feed, and we have the vendors who were removed from their normal working area to the food hub. So it was a whole lot of readjustment was made of the displaced of the fishermen. And also, they were also told not to fish in the area. So that means it would have add up to them loss of earnings and stuff like that. And I wouldn't even calculate for downtime. I also calculate basically for those that were affected, for the fisher folks and the vendors.
Okay. And we know that the central government in their supplemental had recently from the finance committee allocated 50 million to the THA particularly for the oil spill. Do you think that is sufficient in order to cover both the cleanup efforts as well as compensation for the fishermen?
Now, let me just say this. I know when it comes to Tobago and it comes to fisher folk, especially Tobago, the majority of media houses doesn't want to highlight anything come from Tobago. Thank God we have local station that represent Tobago and highlight Tobago concerns and interests. But we would have observed in the past, anything that have to do with Tobago, it doesn't even take second or third or fourth place. We are last. We are dead last in everything. And when I heard that the finance minister is offering Tobago $50 million, you know what the first thing came to my mind? Where is Shamfa Kodro? Where's Ayana Westeroy? Where's Watson Duke? Where's the minority leader, Kelvin Morris? They all speak of interests of Tobago, but none of them have made utterances of Tobagonian being affected by this and the amount of money that was allocated for Tobago. Nobody has said nothing. And we love Tobago. We love Tobago people. But yet still, we could see by the actions of the finance minister that there is some kind of April grudge against Tobagonians and what Tobagonians did. After Tobagonians been contributing so much to this GDP through the national gas and oil industry. So I am really not happy, and that type of behavior should not exist in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, because quite clearly what he's saying is that the chief secretary is lying. So when the chief secretary produced a figure, he believed it's nefarious and it's not truth, right? So when you're doing that publicly, that means you have some type of bitterness, like some kind of bitter water was drank and they told him was Tobago, and he has that in his possession. No, even in all of this, I'm not even hearing Kamala besides Professor saying anything. We're not hearing anybody saying anything. You know why? Because it's Tobago. And I'm telling you, the fisher folk were the first responders to the hydrocarbon in Tobago. And now you are allocating not even half of the amount, right? But 50 million. 50 million cannot even pay the contractors.
Right. And for those of you watching, the request was made for $153 million, and only 50 million was given from the central government.
And I believe if this is the action of the finance minister, he should be charged for some kind of high treason inside. Because quite clearly, what he's saying, Tobagonians are liars. Tobagonians are liars. So when the invoice has been sent to the assembly through TEMA, because TEMA were one of the first responders with the fisher folks to ensure that we safeguard our bestest little island, and this is the result of Trinidad-led and Trinidad roots. So now when I'm speaking here, people are going to say, oh, this and that. But my main concern is not about political party, about red, white, black, blue. I don't business about that, right? The only thing I care about is the well-being of Tobagonians. Right? Because when I checked the last time I checked my birth paper, it didn't mark TPT or PDP or PNM, you know. It marked Tobago. And my main concern is about Tobagonian and Tobagonian interests, because we should have the same opportunity as Trinidadians, because you are getting money from ITA, from international agencies, and you are playing now masters in Trinidad and saying, we are not going to give you this money after it was approved. They would have acknowledged and said this money will be approved to take care of the oil spill. You know why? Because there was no lie. The oil spill was real. And the work we have done in Tobago was real. So why it is then, when the international agency is sending the money for Tobago, you find Tobagonian is not receiving the allocation that they should got? We would also, foreign entities would have give US how much? Hundreds of thousands of dollars. And to date, ask the THA, the Chief Secretary may be able to answer it, if they have received any money to help in this hydrocarbon oil spill by this reckless behavior of the solo creed, right? And why it is that Tobago have to suffer because of what? Because somebody drink bitter water and they call it Tobago? That is not fair, and that is not right. Give Tobago what belongs to Tobago. So the fisher folk could go and pay the loans and get back the boat in the water and start to fish and start to feed the family. Because when you create an action like this, it have a downstream effect. Then we see crime go up. Then we see all kind of proportionately things happening to the people of Tobago, because we have been suffered and not treated fairly and rightly. And we talk about democracy. That is not fair. So today, I am not happy. I am not happy this morning, and I want Trinidad to know Tobagonians are not happy with that decision, and we think they should rethink that decision, and the Prime Minister, being a Tobagonian, need to look into that decision and treat with it. We expect, if not 150, give us $120 million, because it has been funded by the agency in England when Short John took the workers there and make a claim. This is Tobago, and it's real, right? And we are asking for what belongs to us. We're not asking for something that is not us, you know, because the oil spill didn't happen in Trinidad. It happened in the shores of Tobago and in the sweet serenity of Lambo. And we are calling on them to do the right thing. So I don't know how they're going to do it, but that action is inciting violence in the community and in society. And as a leader, you were there to represent us. We are your employers. We employed you. So we expect you to do the right thing. Money wasn't given to Trinidad to run any, to go and give the friends. This money should be allocated for Tobago and the people that work hard to preserve our tourism industry and to protect our marine environment in Tobago, to keep and to maintain that Tobago is one of the cleanest and best place to vacation and to come and enjoy our natural resources.
But would you be willing to have a conversation with the MPs, maybe Shamfa Kudjo as well as Ayanna Webster Roy, to discuss the compensation for the fisher folk coming from the central government while the Chief Secretary utilizes the budget that he was given to maybe pay off the contractors?
No, I will have a conversation with anybody, hence the reason why I'm here. I make no apologies to it. I speak for Tobago. I don't speak for any political party. Whatever political party you come with, once you have the interest of Tobago and the Tobago diaspora, I'm willing to sit down with anyone and discuss, and let's work it out for the benefit of Tobago. And you know, is it when I get call from fishermen, right? They ain't paying their loan credit. You don't want to take away the engine, but the engine and them done break up already, right? They can't pay their rent. The wife calling me, right? I take money from my pocket to help, yeah, man, at $500. That should not be. And now, the Honorable Finance Minister is denying Tobago their rights. Their rights, and as a matter of fact, do you know that the ship hasn't even turned over as yet? It is still in the waters of Tobago under the Ministry of Energy. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Energy are being paid. The Ministry of Energy are being paid. But all the contractors who would have came under the THA, under TEMA, are still struggling to get their money. That is not right. How that could be fair? So Tobagonian must know, Trinidadian must know, the entire Caribbean must know, right? The entire Caribbean must know the draconian behavior that is being displayed, and they must be identified about it. So I'm saying it could be an oversight by the minister, it can be an oversight by the Minister of Finance. So I'm saying to him and to the entire colleague, you remember I am not leaving on anyone, to make it their duty to adjust this, because this money is not going to the Chief Secretary, you know. This money doesn't belong to the Chief Secretary, you know. This money belongs to the people of Tobago. And this money belongs to people who would have worked hard and to ensure that we bring back Tobago to its pristine stage. Right. So why?
Right.
Why?
And one of the things that we often overlook is the actual individuals that reside along the coastline and what type of compensation is given to them, because many of them were forced to vacate their home for maybe a number of days during this time. So schools were affected. It is clear that $50 million is not sufficient to rehabilitate, whether it just be the coastal area there or even to compensate the fishermen. So suggesting that maybe the conversation takes place with our MPs.
Apart from the conversation take place with MPs, the media, the Tobagonian diaspora of media need to do more. We need to advocate more and let people be aware of what is taking place in Tobago, right? And what Trinidadians are doing to Tobagonians. We need to correct that ill now. We need to start to exercise the right process. We are not, and you know why this is happening? Because the oil spill is already done. So you would have engaged me to do a job, right? Without any down payment, without any mobilization fee, without any form of funding to go on. But it is done now, right? But you know, as the colonial masters in Trinidad are deciding now it's done, so here what, I could give you what I want and I am going to keep the rest. So when he decided to give Tobago 50 million, what is he doing with the rest of money that he would have gotten is getting from ITOF, from the people in Trinidad? So that going in their pocket to fix roads in Trinidad, we are saying no, we are not going to allow that. We are asking you kindly to do the right thing. Tobago don't like to speak out, but I hear this morning, and I'm here as the president of all Tobago Fisher Folk, right? And my team are saying enough is enough, and we are calling up on the ministers to do the right thing, and the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. We ain't talking politics here. We are talking work done, paid for work or that is already done. because a lot of people would have came and give free help, and a lot of people would have came and work and use the material, use the machines, use the boat, to ensure that we safeguard Tobago. We would have led by example by being the first responders in Tobago with TEMA to ensure that that boat would have been able to dock in Tobago, and the food stuff would have been able to reach our shelf and reach our homes and our plate to feed our children. The fisher folk would have done that. So we are calling upon him to work in the spirit of the law and to do the right thing and allocate at least $120 million for the Tobago. Or as a matter of fact, I'll give them the money. Still, give us $120 million, tell you to pay us the rest later when you get the money from ITOF or whatever. But you can't just go and tell Tobagonians who already work and they've been sleepless nights with their wife to ensure that it's done, and tell them no, they're only getting 50 million. 50 million can't even help pay nothing for us after they pay contractors. One contractor alone probably is 15 million a month. Eh? Come on. So what, Tobagonians are fools? Enough is enough. And if you're thinking Tobago, you will understand what is going on. And we need to stand up for Tobago, because if we continue to let these type of abuse take place, it will continue to take place for us and our children. And I'm standing up now for my child and my children and my grandchildren. The fisher folk is taking a stance now. We are not going to settle for that, and we are not going to allow it, because the money, as I said, is not going in Mr. Chavez's pocket. This money is to pay people that would have worked. How much more we'll be able to take?
Right. And while we wait for the conversation to be had and for more money to be allocated, what type of temporary measures are you currently discussing with the Chief Secretary to give the fishermen some type of relief?
Well, we are sending an email to have a conversation with him, because we are living in Tobago, and the House of Assembly is the one that we are looking forward for help, and we will hope that we have a sit-down conversation where the executive of ADFA will be able to sit down with the Chief Secretary and see how best we can work out some form of help or relief to the fisher folk through this medium, through a medium where at least men could now pay their rent and pay up their bank loans and stuff like that. Because just to buy an engine, a proper engine, is over $150,000 if you're talking about seriously fishing. That's just for the engine. I'm not talking about the steering, the hydraulics. I'm not even talking about that. That's just the engine, a Suzuki 150. That's just a basic engine. 150. I mean, I'm talking about the boat itself, right? And repairs and maintenance. And I'm even talking about the gas rates that I spend $2,000 a day just to go to sea to make a living to feed our families, right? I'm even talking about sat phone for in terms of safety and stuff like that, and GPS. That's just basic. So, oh God, what happened? Can't we live as one? Can't we now be fair and honest with each other? Eh? We must be able. I respect everybody. I respect the Prime Minister. I respect the every member of parliament, the opposition, THA, every political group. I respect them all. But by the end of the day, we need to do the right thing. This is Trinidad and Tobago, and there are time when there are time for politics, and there are time to do the right thing so that we can grow. We must be able to grow. The fishing industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Why it is, to me, one of my fishermen told me Thursday, listen, Mr. Douglas, it seemed to me like the government of Trinidad and Tobago is trying to kill the fishing industry in Tobago, because it seemed like there's an attack on the fishing industry. And I don't believe, I refuse to believe that is the approach or the plan of the government of Trinidad and Tobago in the terms of growth, because we now need to promote more entrepreneurs, whereby the government will be able to we not be able to depend on the government, but be able to contribute to the GDP by paying our taxes and put things in place so that, all these functions will be able and contribute to the growth and development of the society.
Right. And even as we wrap up this morning, what type of assurances can you give to the fisher folk in Tobago that yourself and your team are working assiduously to ensure that compensation is coming to them soon?
Now, let me speak slowly. I don't want to speak fast. Since 1996, Emil Louis and the team would have ensured and entrust this organization, build them together, and we would have the responsibility, and more so the legal responsibility, to represent fisher folk on this island. And I'm saying to you this morning, the entire board of executive of all Tobago fisher folk, which is ATFA, will do their utmost best, and with the authority that was given to us by the High Court, to ensure that no fisher folk that was affected by this hydrocarbon and by the reckless behavior by the Solo Creed and the owner of Solo Creed, right, will be left behind. We would not ignore or pass over or step on any fisher folk that will be affected, whether you like me or you don't like me or you don't like ATFA. We have a responsibility and a mandate to ensure and represent all fisher folk on the island of Tobago. And I am leading this chart to ensure that some form of compensation will be paid to the fisher folk, or let me use the right term. They're using a term now. Some form of relief will be given to the fisher folk and the diaspora. And also, I'm not leaving out the vendors, so that you all could start and build back your life that was damaged by no fault of you all. And I'm going to press hard and speak to who I have to speak to, do whatever the entire executive do what they have to do to ensure fisher folk is being treated fairly. This is 2024. There is no room for institutional bullying or financial bullying by any government. And if this is the actions of this government, we are the employers. And as an employer, we employ them with our fingers. And the day and the time is coming when our fingers will have to speak to those who would decide to bully and take advantage of the people of Tobago and the fishing industry.
Thank you. Guys, we want to thank you so much for joining us this morning again. Thank you, Mr. Douglas, for coming on and representing the Tobago fisher folk. And guys, we're going to round up our conversation right here this morning. Again, we want to thank you for liking, sharing, and commenting. And as he would have said, do your part to help advocate for Tobago, not for politics or any other ideology except for the forward movement of the island of Tobago and the people of Tobago, and by extension Tobago fisher folk. And we're going to use this time to call on whoever has the power in this moment to speak on behalf of those fisher folk, to ensure that not only Tobago gets what it deserves, but that these fisher folk and their families are given the type of compensation and relief that is needed to help them get back on their feet. Oftentimes we feel like these are groups that go unnoticed and no one is speaking out for them, but this morning we're using our platform here on Tobago Updates to call on whoever has the authority to ensure that compensation comes to the Tobago fisher folk. Guys, we want to thank you again and say have a great day. Thank you for doing all that you can do to make Tobago Updates the #1 broadcaster here on the island of Tobago. Again, have a great day.
Tobago Updates.